Sally's Midlife Adventures, Part 5, Manor on the Nexus Point. Sally and Emma stared at each other in total disbelief. How could Tom be a ghost? Emma had met Tom 20 years ago when he had rescued her from a car accident. She was driving around a mountain pass on a rainy afternoon when a car had skidded off the road and she had rolled her car, banged her head and was knocked unconscious. He had summoned the ambulance and had been by her bedside every time she had woken up, and he held her hand telling her everything would be all right. He was the nicest, well-spoken, handsomest man Emma had met, and she'd felt as if she'd known him all her life. It went unsaid that they would remain together always. He was her best friend, confidant, and was the funniest person she'd ever known, and she laughed a lot when they were together. She did insist on her independence though, and he preferred his own space too. But when they were together, they were inseparable. Sally had met him not long afterwards and had always felt at ease in his company. They all made an effort to spend Christmas and Easter together every year, but now that Sally thought about it, Tom had never met up outside of his house, which she had assumed was probably because he wasn't fond of crowds. So she respected that because she knew Emma loved Tom and he seemed to love her, and that was good enough in her books. Sally, there's a drawing on the side of Thomas Peter Wallaby's gravestone. Looks like one of those sigil thingies you use. Emma almost shrieked. This had been a lot to absorb, and she needed to make sense of it all. Sally looked closer, grabbed Emma's hand, traced her finger over the sigil, smacked it, and whoosh, a portal opened and they jumped through. I was wondering when you guys would get here, Tom remarked as he looked up from the desk in his study, glasses on the tip of his nose. I guess this means you've discovered a few things and are ready to hear the craziest story of your lives. Without calling the men in white coats to take me away, Tom asked in his familiar, humorous tone. It's been quite a ride, Sally remarked with a quizzical look on her face, but smiling anyway. Tom's calm humor was infectious. Please explain why we were standing at your grave, which states you died in 1716 at the age of 15. Emma was too stunned to speak. She just stood in silence, waiting for his answer, almost praying he was not a figment of her imagination. Yes, sorry about that, Tom quipped. I never died, but I did time travel. Your Uncle Dan saved me from the new master of the manor, who was about to have me killed at night in 1716. Your Uncle Dan had managed to interpret sigils he had researched and accidentally landed in my time, using a sigil for a time travel portal. 6 months before my assassination was planned. We became friends once Dan realized that portal sigils were more complicated than he'd contemplated, and that he was stuck in my time. We discovered that my father's cousin had wanted to take over the manor, but first he plotted to have me murdered. I told my parents, who were devastated but agreed to fake my death if Dan could devise an escape plan. Dan managed to figure out the sigil configuration and vanished in a haze. I thought he was gone forever, but I kept the notes in the secret silver treasure box as he requested, in the turret floor, thankfully. I only managed to write one message when he reappeared and we both escaped to the 1980s. It was a lot to take in, but Dan had bought the old, run-down manor in the 1980s and slowly repaired it as he could. His time travel allowed him to play the stock market, so he managed to acquire his wealth and restore the manor to what it is today. However, I was told to keep a low profile so that our secret was never discovered. I was out on a walk when I discovered Emma in her overturned car. Managed to get to a phone using the sigils Tom taught me, and just as Tom had feared, was discovered by another portal traveler who had seen Dan and I together previously and shot me with some sort of laser just as I reached the far side of the manor. A flash appeared and this beautiful amber-eyed woman stood over me, closing my wound with green warm light emanating from her hands. She explained a lot to me. You ladies had better sit down, Tom motioned to them. Her name is Amber. She is a phoenix and can transform into human shape. She is a healer and an overseer of the spirit world. You, Sally, are also a psychic, healer, and the overseer of the dragon world. Emma is a psychic and is the overseer of the human world. When I rescued you, Emma, Amber helped me to defy your mortality, which is how you survived without serious injury. Amber explained to me that the Wallaby Manor which your Uncle Dan bought is actually built over something called a nexus point between these three worlds. This means that the entire manor and the grounds overlaps and exists between these three other worlds. So each of us are in fact guardians to our worlds and have powers beyond the average person, but we are all human too. I know it sounds like something out of a book, but there really is a spirit realm, where ghosts and spirits linger. Dragons really are a reality, in their own realm that is, and Earth is obviously the human realm. But on occasion, ghosts and spirits can cross the barrier, and it's up to us to help them where we can, or show them how to get to where they need to be. The same goes for dragons and humans too. No kidding, this is a lot to absorb, Emma responded. So how do you explain the butler, chef and gardener? They are ghosts, however they have chosen to be guardians of Wallaby Manor, so are not a threat to anyone, Tom quipped. The reason you can see them and interact with them and vice versa is because you are all guardians of each realm, and because the manor is on the nexus point. It exists in every realm, so must be protected quite closely. It's not likely that dragons are going to come bursting through the bubble of their side into ours, but it's actually not impossible. Dan was a dragon hunter when he discovered the door to the dragon realm quite by accident. His dad was too, and when he realized his error and nearly killed a dragon and watched it transform into a baby girl, he became a protector of the dragons. I'm assuming you know by now, Sally, that the baby girl is you. He made it his life's mission to research as much as he could about the portals and realms, and has left clues where he could, which I'm sure we'll find as we go along. I will teach you what I know, but I don't know everything, I'm afraid, because he travelled mostly on his own. So what actually happened to Uncle Dan? Sally asked. Did he die of natural causes, or was he assassinated? A bit of both, I'm afraid, Sally, Tom replied. When he nearly killed the dragon, he was injured by one of its sharp claws, which seemed to cause a bit of an infection. He did manage to control it to a degree, but with all his time travel through the portals and being subjected to so much energy, it did take a toll on his body. He found out that he had leukemia and he went for treatments, but nothing seemed to help. His sister Kate, your adoptive mom, your protector, was actually killed by accident with your adoptive dad 10 years ago. Your Uncle Dan had ensured that she met and married his best friend, a martial arts expert, and had regular training. She was more than able to fend off anyone who might try to harm you. But somebody drove her off the same mountain road Emma had an accident on. They were actually intending to kill you, Sally. Your parents died instantly. Dan was devastated, but he needed to protect you until he could ensure you were safe. So he devised a plan to accidentally meet you in your 20s, so that he could keep a closer eye on you from early on. Little did he know that he would fall head over heels in love with you, and never want to leave your side. Finn? But it couldn't have been Uncle Dan. I would have recognized him, Sally shouted in utter shock. When Dan travelled back in time, he was in his early 20s and had blonde hair at the time, Tom explained, feeling Sally's sheer devastation bubbling to the surface as she tried to grasp the understanding of what he had just told her. Dan, or Finn as he called himself then, was also very sick, but was determined to ensure your safety. Remember how he taught you how to create and use herbal tinctures and how to recognize so many of them? How he explained planets and ghosts and got you interested in old buildings, castles, mysteries, and taught you how to fix everything? It was all leading up to something, Sally. But why? Why did he have to die? Wait. How? He didn't really die all those years ago, did he? Sally asked, quite stunned. It's quite the story, Sally. I know this is all a lot to understand, but just open your mind up even a little more. The veils to different worlds are extremely thin, especially to those who on occasion can see through them. When Finn was dying, the veil between the human world and the spirit world became quite transparent. Amber, the phoenix who saved me, and who is the guardian of the spirit world, understood exactly how important it was that you have a protector until you are ready to gain your dragon powers in your midlife. So being the phoenix she is, she resurrected Finn, but with strict understanding that he was to live as Dan and hunt down the people who were after you. He was to destroy them, or you would be destroyed. Dan has been travelling through time trying to find these hunters before they found you. Unfortunately, they destroyed Dan first, but you are safe still. Nobody except us know of your secrets. We will, however, need to up our game and find Dan's clues and find these hunters now that you have your powers, Tom stated matter-of-factly. So death is not an ending? Sally mused, now deep in thought. Life is destroyed, but death is created, she uttered almost to herself. If that is true, then Uncle Dan can still be reached, can't he? If James, Anna May and Chester still look after the manor as if they are still alive, then surely Uncle Dan can be reached. Sally felt as if she was grasping at straws. Still trying to understand how Finn was actually Uncle Dan, the strict foreboding man she had found him to be. It all started to make sense though. He had to act that way because he loved her, and time travel had complicated their love in so many ways. He was actually 20 years older than her, but then again, if she counted her years living as a dragon in that realm, before she was transformed into a human baby, she most probably was quite a few hundred years older than him. She had to sit a while and absorb it all, because the possibilities were blowing her mind. That's where Emma comes in, Tom replied. Emma, you will need to hone your psychic abilities and discover how to use them. You need to be more relaxed and open to the energies that surround you. Listen to the quietness. There is sound within it. Concentrate on hearing all those sounds, but focus on each and every sound separately. You need to learn to be in a crowded room and be able to separate each sound individually and focus on specific sounds you wish to hear. For instance, if Sally and I and 10 other people are in a room together, all chatting up a noisy storm, if you want to hear what I am saying, you need to shut out all the other people's yabbering and focus on my voice. Listen to only my voice. Everyone speaks on slightly different frequencies, and once you can pick up on that, you can start listening for sounds from the spirit realm. Then you can focus on sounds between the silence. Each realm is in fact occupying the same space, just on different frequencies. As I explained, the manor is on a nexus point, where all these frequencies actually overlap, making it so much easier to be able to see and hear things from the other realms. This is extremely dangerous as well as exciting at the same time. If anyone or anything makes a huge effort, they can cross the barriers. So we need to be extremely careful that nobody ever finds out about the manor being so important, especially those hunters. Emma was stunned to silence. She seemed to be sitting in a daze, trying to grasp it all, just listening to Sally and Tom discuss everything. Almost overwhelmed to the point of exhaustion, yet consoled by the fact that Tom was human and real and still hers. She smiled at the thought and suddenly stood up and hugged Tom, holding him for the longest time. He sensed her anxiousness and held her tightly too, as they both accepted the fact that everything had changed, but that they were still thankful they had each other. Suddenly, Emma saw a shadow dart across the room, but then it was gone again. Tom, I'm really going to need your help with all of this. I think I'm seeing things, Emma stated, still snuggled in Tom's arms. Emma, you've always seen things, Tom answered, laughing at her. You've just never realized to which degree. You know that St. Bernard of mine you always chase off my bed? He died 10 years ago.